or developing more sophisticated computer application programs. And after this course, you can program your own project using the C language. And meanwhile, you could easily learn and adopt other high-level programming languages by yourself. By the way, this is a fundamental course, therefore, you do not need to attend other courses before. Now, we have 3 instructors for this course, Pengfei, Chen, and me. Pengfei and Chen are teaching assistants, and you will see them in the online tutorials next week. And if you have any questions about this course, please feel free to contact us. And our email addresses are showing in this slide. In the future, we may have more teaching assistants to join us, and we will update the information on the Blackboard. Next, we will provide some information about online teaching and learning. Basically, we will use the Blackboard and the MS Teams tools. We will update the recorded lectures, class candidate, homework assignment, homework submission, solutions, grades, and other information to the Blackboard. And the MS Teams is used to give the online lectures and the tutorials. And in a word, check all the information about this course on Blackboard and attend the online lectures through the MS Teams. The textbook of this course is C How to Program. We will introduce the C language programming following the structure of this book. And we have 4 assignments about this course, and they will be released gradually. Please note that no later assignments will be accepted. If you do not submit an assignment on time, you will lose all the scores of this assignment. And all assignments are due by the 11:59 p.m. Hong Kong time on the due date in the Blackboard. And next, about the grounding. The evaluation is divided into 4 parts: 4 assessments, 2 quizzes, 1 mini project, and an open book online examination. And same as the assignments, if you miss a quiz, you will lose all the scores of this course. And the difficulty of the course is lower than or similar to the difficulty of the homework. So don't worry, as long as you do your homework, you can pass the quiz. And about the mini project. The mini project is to implement a complete application using the C language. And maybe 2 or 3 students can be a group, can be a team. And the detailed information about the mini project will be released later. And finally, our final examination is open booked, which means that you can check the book, but cannot find other information on the internet. This is our schedule. Do you have any questions for this course on assignment and grounding? If you have any questions, please type in the chat box. Okay, let's continue. Book, but cannot find other information on the internet. This is our schedule. We have 13 teaching weekends. Today, I introduce the course, the programming fundamentals, and the C language. And the next week, we will introduce the structured program, and the assignment 1 will be released after the second lecture. And then we will learn the C program control functions, and the assignment 2 is about the program control and functions. Next, the C array and pointers will be introduced, and the assignment 3 is about the functions, arrays, and pointers. Next, the C strings, structures, the file processing, and the data structures will be introduced, and the assignment 4 is about those content. And the first quiz is in the second course of the C array, and it will include all the learned content. And the second quiz is in the course of the C data structures. We will release the mini project at the end of the course, say point, and you should submit your source code and the report before the next 2 classes. And in the next 2 classes, you will present your mini projects, such as implemented functions and how to implement them. The specific arrangements about the course are shown here, and all the lessons will be held on the Wednesdays, and the tutorials are on Mondays and Tuesdays. Also, we will provide the consultation, and the consultation hours will be released on the Blackboard. The academic integrity is essential in academic environment. And the university also release academic regulations for undergraduate students. And you can find those regulations through this link. And also, we need to avoid the academic dishonesty, such as cheating on examination, unauthorized collaborations, and so on. And in particular, for this course, getting the code from the internet, asking someone else to write the code for you, or copying your friend's code are not allowed. If you have any academic dishonesty, you will receive a warning, a lower grade, or even failing grade. Okay, we have known some information about this course. Let's introduce to the fundamental program. Do you have any other questions about the course itself? Next, we will introduce fundamental programming. And why do we need to learn the programming? One of the core reasons may be that yes, is it this course will count attendance? I will download the attendance, but it's not but the attendance will not be a part of the grounding. Practical use of computers and programming. And we all know that the computers can perform calculations and make logical decisions faster than human beings can. But how to command computers to perform tasks? And in this course, you will learn how to command computers to perform tasks. In fact, computers process data under the control of the sequences of instructions called the computer programs. And those programs guide the computer through ordered actions specified by the people called the computer programmers. And in this course, you will learn how to become programmer and to write computer programs. First, we need to know 2 basic concepts about the computers, and the hardware and the software. The programs that run the computer are referred to as the software. It is a sequence of the instructions you write to command the computers to perform actions and make decisions. And for the hardware, a computer consists of the various devices referred to as hardware, such as a keyboard, mouse, hard disk, memory, DVD drivers, and so on. And the relationship between the software and the hardware is that the software controls computer hardware, and the computing costs are dropping dramatically owing to the developments in both the hardware and the software technologies. And the computers that might have filled large rooms and cost millions of dollars many years ago are now inscripted on silicon chips smaller than a fingernail, costing perhaps a few dollars each. And those technologies has made computing so economically that computers has become a commodity. For many years, the hardware cost has fallen repeatedly, and every year or two, the capacities of the computers has doubly inexpensively, and this tree often is called Moore's law, named for the person who identified it in the 1916, and Gordon Moore, the co-founder of the Internet. Moore's law and the related observations and apply especially to the amount of memory that computers have for programs, the amount of second storage, such as the disk storage, and they have to hold the programs and the data over longer time and their process speeds. Regardless of the differences in physical appearance, computers can be envisioned as divided into various logical units or sections. And first, the input unit. That is receiving section, which gets information, the data, and the computer programs from the input devices and places it at the disposal of the other units for processing. The most used input is entered into computers through the keyboards, touch screens, and mouse devices. And other forms of the input, including receiving the voice commands, the scaling images and the barcodes, and reading from the second storage devices such as hard drivers, DVD drivers, and USB flash drivers, retrieving videos from web cameras, and having your computer receive information from the internet, such as when you stream videos from the YouTube. And then the new forms of the input include the pollution data from a GPS devices and motions and orientation information from a smartphone or game controller. And the output unit. This shaping section takes the information the computer has processed and placed it on various output devices to make it available for use outside the computer. And the most information that's the output from the computers today is displayed on the screens, including the touch screens, and printed on paper, and also plated as an audience or videos on the PCs and the media players, and the giant screens in the sports studios, and transmitted over the internet or used to control the other devices such as the robots and the intelligence alliances. And the information is also commonly output to second storage devices, same as the input unit, such as the hard drives, DVD drives, and the USB flash drives. And the popular recent forms of the output are the smartphone and the game controller. And the third unit, the memory unit. This replicates relatively low capacity warehouse sections, returns the information that has been entered through the input unit, making it immediately available for processing when needed. And the memory unit also returns processed information unit. It can be placed on output devices by the output unit. And the information in the memory unit is volatile. This typically lost when the computer's power is turned off, and the memory unit is also called either the memory, primary memory, or the randomly accessed memory. And then the central process unit and the arithmetic and logical unit belongs to the logical unit. The ALU, this manufacturing section, performs calculations such as addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division. It also contains the decision calculations that allow the computer, for example, to compare two items from the memory units to determine that whether they are equal. And in today's systems, the ALU is implemented as part of the CPU. The central process unit, the CPU, this administrative section coordinates and supervises the operations of the other sections. And the CPU tells the input unit when information should be read into the memory units and tells the ALU whether information from the memory unit should be used in calculation, and tells output units when to send the information from the memory unit to some output devices. And many of today's computers have multiple CPUs, and hence can perform many operations at the same time. And today's desk computers has many processors that can perform billions of instructions per second. And finally, the second storage unit. This is the long-term high-capacity warehousing section. The programs or data not actively being used by the other units normally are placed on the second storage devices, and until they are again needed, possibly hours, days, months, or even years later. And the information on the second storage devices is persistent. It persists even when the computer's power is turned off. And the secondary storage information takes much longer to access than information in the primary memory, but its cost per unit is much less. And the examples of second storage devices including the hard drivers, the DVD drivers, and the USB flash drivers. Next, let's learn the data hierarchy. The data items processed by computers form a data hierarchy that becomes larger and more complex in structure as we process from the bits to characters to fields and so on. And the bits are the smallest data item in a computer, can assume the value 0 or the value 1. And it can be suited for binary digital that can assume 1 or 2 values. And the characters is tedious for people to work with data in the low-level forms of bits, and instead they prefer to work with the decimal digits, letters, and spatial symbols. And the fields are composed of characters or bytes. And a field is a group of characters or bytes that covers meaning. And several related fields can be used to compose a record, and which is a group of related fields. And the file is a group of related records. And more generally, a file contains arbitrary data in arbitrary formats. And in some operating systems, a file is viewed simply as a sequence of bytes, and any organizations of the bytes in a file, such as organizing the data into records, is a view created by the application programmer. And then we also have database. A database is a collaboration of data organized for easy access and manipulation. And the most popular model is a relational database, in which the data is stored in a simple tables. And the table includes the records and the fields. And you can search, shoot, or otherwise manipulate the data based on this relationship to multiple tables or databases. Programmers write the instructions in various programming languages, and some directly understandable by the computers, and others requiring intermediate translation steps. And over the years, the computer language has been evolved from the low level to the high level languages. In the earliest days of the computers, only binary language was used to write programs, and the computer languages are classified as follows. The low-level language is the only language which can be understood by the computer. And the low-level language is also known as the machine language. The machine language contains only 2 symbols, the 1 and the 0. All the instructions of machine language are written in the forms of the binary numbers, the 1 and the 0. And the computer can directly understand the machine language. And the middle level language is a computer language in which the instructions are created by using the symbols such as the letters, digits, and special characters. And the assembly language is an example of the middle level languages. In assembly language, we use predefined words coded the mnemonics, binary code instructions in the low level language are replaced with the mnemonics and operands in the medium level language. But the computer cannot understand the mnemonics, so we use the translator coded assembly to translate the mnemonics into the machine languages. And assembler is a translator which takes assembly code as input and produce the machine code as output. That means that the computer cannot understand the mid-level language, so it needs to be translated into a low-level language to make it understandable by the computer. And the assembler is used to translate the mid-level languages into the low-level language. And then the high-level language is a computer language which can be understood by the users. The high-level language is very similar to human language and has a set of grammar rulers that are used to make instructions more easily. And every high-level language has a set of predefined words, known as the keywords, and a set of rulers, known as the syntax, to correct instructions. And the high-level language is easy to understand for the users, but the computers cannot understand it. And the high-level language need to be converted into a low-level language to make it understandable by the computer. And we use the combiner or the interpreter to convert the high-level languages to low-level languages. And the languages like C, C++, Java, Python are examples of the high-level languages. All those programming languages using the human understandable language to write programs instructions. And those instructions are converted to low-level language by the combiner or the interpreter so that it can be understood by the computer. You will learn the C programming language in this course, but why do we learn the C language?
So far, we have introduced some basic concepts about the computer, and now we will introduce some basic concepts about the C programming language and why we choose to learn the C programming language to learn the program.
Many of today's leading operating systems are written in C or the C++, and C is a mostly hardware-independent language. And with a careful decision, it's possible to write C programs that are portable to most computers. And also, after learning the C language, you can easily learn other language. And the history of the C language. The C language was evolved from B and was originally implemented in 1962, and it is initially become widely known as the development language of the Unix operating system. And C is widely used to develop systems that demand performance, such as operating systems, embedded systems, real-time systems, and communication systems. And for the operating systems, C's portability and performance make it desirable for implementing operating systems such as Linux and the portions of the Microsoft Windows and Google's Android. And Apple's OS X is built in Objective-C, which was derived from C. And for the embedded systems, the vast majority of the microprocessors produced each year are embedded in devices other than general purpose computers. And Those embedded systems include navigation systems, smart home applications, home security systems, and smartphones, tables, robots, intelligence, traffic intersections, and more. And C is one of the most popular programming language for developing embedded systems, and which typically needed to run as fast as possible and converse memories. For example, a car's anti-lock brakes must respond immediately to slow or stop the car without skidding. Game controllers used for a video game should respond instant and instantaneously to prevent any lag between the controller and the action in the game, and to ensure the smooth animations. And for the real-time systems, the real-time systems are often used for mission-critical applications that require nearly immediately and predictable response times, and real-time systems need to work continuously. For example, air traffic control system must constantly monitor the positions and velocities of the planes and report that information to air traffic controllers without delay, so that they can alert the planes to change the course if there is a possible of the collision. And for the communication systems need to route massive amounts of data to their destinations quickly to ensure the things such as the audience and the audience are delivered smoothly and without delay. And in addition, there are many high-level languages are all based on the C programming language, such as the Objective-C and the Java. C systems generally consist of several parts: a program development environment, the language, and the C standard library. And the C progress typically goes through 6 stages to be executed, and they are the editor, preprocessor, compile, link, load, and execute.
And this concept for execute a C program language into the computer is important, and it will tell us if we input a program and how this compiler and other things help us to execute those program in the computers and your laptop.
The stage 1 consists of editing a file. This is accomplished with the editor program. The 2 editors widely used on Linux systems are Vim and Emacs, and the software packages for the C integrated program.
And those 2 IDEs and the environment to execute those programs will be introduced in the tutorials in the next week.
Development environments such as the Eclipse and the Microsoft Visual Studio has editors that are integrated into the programming environment, and those editors will be introduced in tutorials. When you type a C program with the editor, make correlations if necessary, then store the program on a secondary storage devices such as a hard disk, and the C program file names should end with the .c extension. And in stage 3, you give the command to compile the program. The compiler translates the C program into machine language code, and we have mentioned before. And in a C system, a preprocessor program executes automatically before the compiler's translation stage begins, and the C preprocessor gets the special comment called the preprocessor directives, which indicates that the manipulations are to be performed on the programs before the compilation. And those manipulations usually consist of including other files in the file to be compiled and performing various text replacements. And in stage 3, the compiler will translate the C program into machine language code, and the syntax error occurs when the compilers cannot recognize a statement before it violates the rules of the language. And the syntax errors are also called the compile errors or the compile time errors. The next stage is called the link. And the C program typically contain reference to the functions defined elsewhere, such as in the standard libraries or in the private libraries of groups of the programmers and working on a particular project. And the object code produced by the C compilers typically consists the honors due to those missing parts. And the linker links the object code with the code for the missing functions to produce a executable image with no missing pieces. And on a typical Linux system, the command to compile and link the program is called the GCC. And if the program compiles and links correctly, a file named the fileline.out is produced. And this is the executable image of our filename.c program. And the next stage is called the loading. Before a program can be executed, the program must first be placed in memory. This is done by the loader, which takes the executable image from disk and transfers it into memory. And additional components from the shared libraries that support the program are also loaded. And finally, the computer, under the control of its CPU, executes the program one instruction at a time, and to load and execute the program.
So far, we have introduced the concept, the course, and introduced some basic concepts about the programming and the C languages. And next section, we will introduce the C programming and also show some examples. And do you need a break? Okay, maybe we have a break and then return to this course in the 5 minutes. Okay, we now start to introduce the C programming language. And in these sections, I will show some examples for you to get some basic understand and the concept about the C language.
In the last section, we have introduced the course and some fundamental concepts of the programming. And in this course, we will introduce the C programming language. We introduce C programming language and reference several examples that is showing many important features of C. And after learning this session, you will learn how to write simple C programs, use simple input and output statements, use the fundamental data types, learn computer memory concepts, use arithmetic operators, and learn the precedence of the arithmetic operators. We begin by considering a simple C program. Our first example prints a line of the text, "Welcome to C."
And now I will input and type this program, and we see its result. I just use online compilers, but you will install the environment and use the IDE in your own laptops. First, I will write some comment for the. I will some comment for this program, and the comment will not be executed by the compiler. Now we include some header, which those headers will include some basic understandable libraries. Okay, someone asked about that. How can we get the environment on our laptop? The environment and how to use those IDEs will be introduced in the tutorial in next week. Yes, the spacing is a must, and I will explain the program step by step. And right now, we just input this program into the environment and see the results. And this is a main function, and we write a print for. And we want to print the string "welcome to C" on the screen. Okay, we have to write this program, and we just run this program. And in your old computer, you will see the "welcome to the C" will showing on the screen. I just because I use the online C compiler, so it's just showing here. Yeah, it means the program.
Now, we will explain every line of our first C program. The first two lines begin with the double slash, indicating that those two lines are comments. And comments document programs and improve programs' readability. And in this example, we document that this example is showing in the figure 2.1 of the book, and it is our first program in C. And the comments do not cause the computer to perform any action.
Yes, the file the .c is the extension of the C language programming file. So any programming in C will be stored in the file line the .c in this in your desktop or in your old hard disk. Just like the text, the text file will be named as the .txt. The .c means this is a C program.
The program is run, and they are ignored by the C compiler and do not cause any machine language object code to be generated. And therefore, the first two.
Yes, I will show an example for the multiple line comments.
Lines will not be executed. And when we write a code, we usually give some comments. And the comments also help other people read and understand your program. So remember to write comments in your own programs. And you can also use the slash and star multiple line comments, in which every from the slash and star on the first line to the star slash at the end of the line is a comment. But we prefer the double slash comments because they are shorter and they are eliminate the common programming errors that cause with the slash and star comments, especially when the closing star slash is omitted.
Okay, this is an example of the multi-line the comments. We have shown that those lines are not executed. So we can also use the something like that. To comment this first line. So if we use these signs, it will comment these lines. Also, if we want to comment multiple lines, we could just include the comment include those the comments inside those signs. And let's run its program again. And we can see the same result. Yes, they have the same effect, but this line can only comment one line. So if you want to comment multiple lines, you have to use a multiple this sign, this double slash, such as if we want to comment the multiple lines, Yeah, if we just use the double slash on the line 6, we will get a wrong result because this comment will not be comment. We can see the program cannot be executed. So if we use this double slash, we need to comment every line. Or we can just comment one line, and we want to comment multiple lines. We will use the multiple double slash. It can be in one line. Just use space. We can also get the right result. Yes, a program, of course, can actually operate without any comments. But write a comments is a good practice for the programmers because you need to write comments for yourself and for others who read your code and to understand the meaning of this code. Yes, the double slash is just for one line. If you want to comment multiple lines, you need to use the multiple double slash. But the multiple line comments sign can be like a brace. And you can use one pair of this multi-label multi-line comments to comment multiple lines. It must write. Yeah, the first two lines in the examples of lecture notes must be right in every program. If you do not write these comments, your program is still correct, and you can still get a correct result. But as a good practice, I suggest you to write those comments. So in this class, in this course, you need to write the first comments, the first two lines comment to explain your program. And also you are suggested to write more comments in the other parts or in the main part in body of use of in your program, in your code, because you need to have the it will help you to have a good practice. Do you have any questions, other questions about the comments? Okay, we will move to the, what's the figure? Yeah, I have noted in the slides, because we use the textbooks, see how to program, and this example is their example, is the examples in their book. So this figure 0.2 and 0.1, it means that this is the example in the figure 1, figure 0.1, 2, and 1 in their book. It's just a reference for their book. Sure, you can change the name and you can write your own comment. And the first two lines of the comments, you will need to describe the whole operations and the arms of this program, the purpose. of your code. You will explain what this code is doing and will do in the first 2 lines or 3 lines. Sure, you can add a comment at any line as you want. And this comment, the aims of the comments is to help you and help others to read your code and to understand the code. Yes, the first 2 lines will only show the code but not the result, because we can see the result is only the welcome to C. So this is the use. This is the aims of the comments. The comments is just help you and helps others to read your code and for the readability, for the readable. So the comments will not be executed in a program and in your code. It will not be ignored by the computer. It be ignored by the compiler. And the combiner will know that this is the comments, and it will not to execute it, and not to compile it. We will talk the include will move yes, this blank is must be the include.
The next line is to include the standard input and output.
Not all the blank is necessary. I will talk about the blank later. But, including the blank and some space and the table.
And this statement is a directive to the C preprocessor, and lines beginning with number sign are processed by the preprocessor before compilation. And this line tells the preprocessor to include the content of the standard input and output header in the program. And this header contains information used by the compiler when combining codes to the standard input and output library functions, such as the printful. And if your program includes any standard input and output operators, remember to include the standard input and output header, and will almost always include this line. The line 4 is in the.
Do you have any questions for the include standard input and output header? For now, you just remember to include this statement in your program. And we will introduce what the standard input and output means in the future. Yes, just remember to include the statement at the beginning or just before the main function. What do you mean about we only need to put it once? For now, just remember to include it because the print4 functions we will introduce later, which is included in this header and in this file. So include this file. You will as long as you want to input or output something, you just remember to include this statement. Yes, it means that it will include. The STD means the standard, and the IO means the input and output. Yes, the include need to type. It include means that you will include those header. And we may include different headers. And for this examples, we include the standard input and output. The point, the .h means this is a head file, and we will talk about it in the future. For now, just remember to include the statement. Sometimes we will have a pair of the the point C file and also the point H file, and we will talk about in the future. Right now, just remember to include it. The point H means this is the head file, and the point C means that this is a C language file. Yes, no need in the end. You just just need to include at the beginning of the program of the code. The head file I will introduce in the future. For this course, we just to understand some basic C language concept. In fact, the head, which will contain some information used by the compiler when compiling calls to some functions and you need. In this example, we need to point for and point for the statement, point for a string on the screen, the welcome to C. So we must include the head of the standard input and output head. So if we want to do some other behavior, we may include other head. If you do not include this first statement, you can not print for. Use this function of print for. So we continue.
And this header contains information used by the input and output operators. If your program includes any standard input and output operators, remember to include the standard input and output header, and we almost always include this line. The line 4 is a blank line, and we use the blank line space characters and the table characters to make programs easier to read. And together, those characters are shown as white space. The white space characters are normally ignored by the combiner. The line 5 is a comment for the following main functions, and every function should be preceded by a comment describing the function's purpose. And line 6 is the main function that is part of every C program. And the parenthesis after main indicates that main is a program building block called a function. And C programs contains one or more functions, one of which must be the main functions. Every program in C begins executing at the function main. We can
the space, just the space. For example, this is a space. And the table is for example, I type a table here.
see that the int main at
in fact, some space is important and must be included, such as if I do not include the space here, then the output result will be changed. And also, if I define a variable, like this, I will introduce it later. Just remember, for now, just understand it as we define a variable which is an int type. And also, if we lost the space, just like this, it will be a variable name, the name of variable, and will missing the type of the variable. So it is it isn't correct in this case. But in this case, this space can be removed. If we remove this space, the result will still correct. So in different cases, the space and the tables have different different results. But we suggest you to include the space for readable. For example, we remove the space. The program can still get the result, the correct result.
The keywords. In particular, the keyword int to the left of the main functions indicates that the main returns a integer value. We will explain what it means for the function to return a value when we demonstrate how to create your own functions in the section of the function. And for now, just simply include the keyword int to the left and in each of your programs. And the functions also can receive information, which they will code it up to execute. And the void in the parentheses here means that the main do not receive any function, receive any values and informations. The body of the function is written between a pairs of braces, and the left brace begins the body of every functions, and the corresponding right brace ends every function. This pairs of braces and the portion of the program between the braces is called a block. There is a printful statement in the body of the function, and this line instructs the computer to perform an action, namely to print on the screen the string of the characters marked by the quotation marks. And a string is sometimes also called a character string or message. And the line, including the printful function, its argument within the parentheses and the semicolon is called a statement. And every statement must end with a semicolon. And when the preceding printful statement is executed, it prints.
The brace can be in a one line, but we still suggest you to include this at the one line dependent, because it's also for the readable. It's a good practice. For example, we can also do like this. And we can still get a correct result, but it's hard to read the code and hard to understand for others. Another way you can do something like this, or you can choose another style. For example, like this. These two styles are okay in this community. So in a one program, in a one code, please use the same style, which means that if you use something like that, you will always use this style, and if you use this, and you should keep the style in your whole program and in your code.
The message "Welcome to C" on the screen. And the characters normally print exactly as they appear between the double quotes in the printful statement. And note that the characters, the /n will not printed on the screen, and the backslash is called an escape character. It indicates that the printful is supposed to do something out of the ordinary. And when encountering a backslash in a string, the compiler looks ahead at the next character and combines it with the backslash to form an escaped sequence. And the escaped sequence, the /n, means the new line. And when a new line appears in the string output by a printful, the new lines cause the cursor to operations to the beginning of the next line on the screen. Some common escape sequences are listed here. Note that because here.
Note that we print the welcome to C and the / and N in this double quarters, but we can see that we only have the welcome to C on this output in the screen. So what the /n means, which means a new line. So it will not be showing on this screen.
Note that because a backslash has spatial meaning in a string, which means that the compiler recognizes it as an escape character, and we use a double backslash to replace a single backslash in a string. And also, printing a double quote also represents a problem because the double quotes mark the boundaries of a string. Such quotes are not printed. So by using the escape sequence, the / quote in a string to be output by printful, we indicate that the printful also display a double quote. We see that the print for causes the computer to perform action. As any program executes, it performs a variety of actions and
So for this example, can you guess the answers? What the string will be printed on the screen? For these two examples. For the first examples, what results will be showing on the screen? Okay, we just try it and see the result. A good practice is that if you want to know what will happen in a C program, you just write in your program and see the result. Okay, we run it. Yeah, it shows the welcome to C. And most of you have the correct answer. Why we have this result? The first program will output the welcome to C as same as the simple program. Yes, because the /n means the new line. And we will not start at a new line. So the result will print step just follow the welcome. Okay, what's the result of the second program? Yes, you get the correct answer. Yes, so we could use 1.4 to print the string in multiple lines. Of course, we can use a 1.4 to print the multiple lines, because we can use the /n, which means a new line.
Decisions. And we discuss these actions or the decisions model of the programming in depth in next week.
In fact, we will have a label in this line at the end of the line, which means that we will start a new line. So if we print other things, follow this lines, follow this program, or follow this printed lines, you will start at the next line. If you do not use the /n, you will still the next printing will still in this line.
And
in fact, it has a slash n, but we cannot see it just like that.
Into if the printf functions can print welcome to C several different ways, and let's get the results of the two programs. The first programs will output the welcome to C as same as our simple program, and this works because each printf resumes printing where the previous printf stopped printing. And the first printf prints welcome, followed by a space, and the second printf begins printing on the same line immediately following the space. And for the second example, one printf can print several lines by using additional new lines characters, and each time the new lines escape sequence is incounted, and output continues at the beginning of the next line. Our next program uses the standard library function scanf to get the two integers typed by a user at the keyboard, computes the sum of those values.
Do you have any questions for this first simple program? If no, we will start. We will give the second example. Okay.
Print the result using the printf, and we also explain this program step by step. The first two lines are the comments for describing the program.
We same as before, we write and type this code to see the results. Also, we will first have the comments. And the second line is also the comment. Tell us this is addition program. And we'll also include the standard input and output header, and give the comment of the main function. Now we write the body of the main functions. First, we will define the integer 1, which is an int type variable. And we should write the comment. And the comment will tell us that this is the first number to be entered by user. Also, we define the integer 2, which is the second number to be entered by user. And now we'll print for that. We ask the user to ent a first integer. Then the user will input integer, and then we will the program and the code will read this integer. Same as before, we read the second one. Yes, scan forward and the percent sign D will be explained later. We just put this program and see the result. Know what will happen in this program. And then we will define the variable the sum, which will be the total of these two inputted variables. Yes, I added it. I forgot to write the comment for this line. So remember it to write the comment for your program. Yeah. The void means the void type, which means that the low value is accepted here. And I will introduce all the some common used data type in the in next section. No, you can remove the space. It also a comment. For example, we remove those two. Yes, that's a comment. If you do not include the comment such as the first number to be entered by user, you can still get the correct answer. However, we, as a beginner, we write those comments to help us to understand this code. Yes. Yes, you are right. The space is for read easily. Yes, we will talk about the scan for later. Same as before, I will introduce those these programs 9 by 9. Thank you for point 6. Okay, we have write this program and we run it. And then it will show that enter the first integer. So I will enter the first integer. For this example, if we just input the 14.5 and then return, just press the return button. And then it will tell us that enter the second integer. And I just put the 72 and also press the return button. And then it will show that the sum is 116. Yes, after we input the 14.5 or the number, I will also press the return button, or it will not know that we have input the integer. We use the end button to tell it that we has input the number. The enter means asking the user to enter or to input some number. Yes, please return in keyboard. It will tell the program. It will tell the code that you have input this number. The printful is a printful function, and which it will print the result in the screen. So it's yes, I will explain the this thing in the 9:20 later. For now, we just have a simple concept of this program and what the result it will be showing. The second, it's a comment. We can write yes, this the comment for this line is print. You can write your own comment. I should write the print because the print for means the print for function.
And the line 3 includes the standard input-output header. And the line 4 is a blank line for better readability. And the line 5 is a comment for the main function. And the main functions is showing between the line 6 to the line 21. The first 3 lines of the body of the main functions, they define the 3 variables. And the names integer 1, integer 2, and the sum of the names of the variables. And the variables located in memory where the values can be stored for use by a program. And those definitions specify that the variables, the integer 1, the integer 2, and the sum are of the type int, and which means that they will hold the integer values. And in addition, all the variables must be defined with a name and a data type before they can be used in a program.
So in the 3 lines, the int means this is a type. Yeah, well, we can try it. For this question, what will happen if we in some numbers and it's not an integer? You mean we print some real number? For example, it depends on the compiler. Due to my use online compiler, so it did not get the result as I expected. In fact, if you are int variables, but you print a real number, depends on the compiler, you will get an error, or you will just get you will just get the integer part of this real number.
And
the 3 lines, the int means the type. So in the 3 lines, we say that there's 3 variables. Their types are the int, which means the integer. And also this integer 1, integer 2, they are the name of the variable. So in a program, each variable will have a unique name.
Hidden definitions could have been combined into a single definition statement as shown in here. But
yes, int means the type, and the integer 1, integer 2, and sum means the name of the variable. And we will introduce more data types in the next section.
Would have made it difficult to describe the variables with the corresponding comments. A variable name in C is any valid identifier, and an identifier is a set
Here we talk about the variable name.
of characters consisting of letters, digits, and the underscores that does not begin with a digital. And C is case sensitive. The uppercases and lowercase letters are different in C, so those two names are different identifiers. And there is some good programming practice for naming the variables. For example, we could choosing the meaningful variable names helps to make a program self-documenting, which means that the few comments are needed. And also, the first letter of an identifier used as a simple variable name should be a lowercase letter. And later in the text, we will assign special significance to identifiers that begin with capital letters and to identifiers that use all the capital letters. And moreover, the multiple word variable names can help make a program more readable. We separate the words with the underscores as in the total
The int a name of a variable means that we define a variable, and this variable type is int, and its name is a name in this case. And in our case, which means we define a variable, and this variable's type is int, and this variable's name is an integer 1.
Or if you run the words together, begin each word up to the first with a cap,
which means such as the type of the variable and a space and the name of the variable.
letters as in this total commissions, and the letter style is the preferred.
Okay, we see some how to give the name of the variables. And for we cannot define a name which begin with a digital, and we try it. If we rename the variable as a 1 integer, we can see the run the program, now see the error. It says that the identifier cannot be started at a number, a digital. But we can define a variable, use the 9 like this. Yeah, because I changed this, so I should change the name. And we can still get a correct result. But in Uni, we start naming variables using the lowercase, using the lowercase. And also, we can just use A, B, C to define our to choose a name for a variable. Such as we use A, B, like that. But remember to use a name which is meaningful. that will help you to understand your old program, and it also have a good readable. Also, we can define a name using the multiple words, such as we can naming this variable as so naming your variables use a meaningful name. And there are two styles. And the first one is like this, and the second one is just so you can choose these two styles by yourself.
The next line is a printful statement. It displays the message and the first integer and positions the cursor to the beginning of the next line. And this message is called the parameter because it tells the user to take a specific action. The next statement uses the scanf to get a value from the user. And the scanf function reads from the standard input, which is usually the keyboard. And this scanf has two arguments, those two ones. And the first, the format control string indicates the type of the data that should be input by the user. And then the person assigned the conversation specifier indicates that the data should be an integer, and the person assigned in this context is treated by scanf as a special character that begins a conversation specifier. And the second argument of the scanf begins with a ampersand called the address operator in C and followed by the variable name. And the ampersand, when combined with the variable name, tells the scanf the location or the address in memory at which a variable integer one is stored. And the computer then stores the value that the user enters for the integer one at that location. And the use of the ampersand is often confusing to novice programmers to the people who have programmed in other languages that do not require this notation. And for now, just remember to precede each variable in every call to scanf with an ampersand, and also place a space after each comma to make the program more readable. And when the computer executes the preceding scanf, it waits for the user to enter a value for the variable integer one, as we shown before. And the user responds by typing an integer and then using the enter key to send the numbers to the computer. And then the computer assigns the number or value to the variable in integer one, and any subsequent references to the in integer 1 in this program will be used the same values. And the functions print for and scan for facilitate the interactions between the user and the computers. So it's often called it as the interactive computing.
This sign, the percent sign D, means that we need the type of the variable we need to read is a int type. Which is the string format. So the percentage sign D means that the variable we need to read whose type is an int. We can also use the percentage sign and other characters to mean other type. Yeah, it will tell us that we read a variable, we read a number, and the number is for what variable. So it tells that yes, the number we read belongs to the integer 1. The scan for means that we will read something, and the percentage sign D means that we read a integer type variable, or integer type and integer number. And the integer 1 means that this rated number will be stored in this variable integer 1. Yes, this sign means that the memory of this sign means that the memory of this variable. And the star what meaning for yes, if we scan for some things, we need see that we need to store this variable, this number, read number to the memory of this variable. So we use this sign, and when we output, we just output this variable, and it will tell us that we will output this variable's value. And this the meaning of this sign, we will introduce this in the section of the points. So in other language, you just do not need to include the sign. You can remove it. But in the C language and the C++, you need to use this sign to represent that we will store this number into the memory of this variable. In fact, if we read something, it means that we put the number in the memory of this variable. But this S9 is just that we do not get something from the keyboard to store this value to the memory. We just say that the sum is the total of these two values. So this sign, so far you can only see it at the scanf. In other cases, you can just use the variable name. The computers will remember the integer 1, integer 2, and then so on. Yes, if we use the scanf, you must include this. But in other parts, you cannot include it right now. For the meaning, for the depth understand of this sign, we will introduce in the section of the points.
Same as the first variable integer 1, we also use the printf and the scanf to read the second variable, the integer 2, and the printf statement displays the message end.
And we can do a test if we remove this sign. And we can it gave a warning, but in fact it should be an error because I use the online compiler. Maybe it changed some features of the C compiler, the standard C compiler. Yeah, for the conversation specifier. The percentage sign D or the percent sign and other characters this such as this symbol and other symbol like they are all the conversation specifier, which means that the data should be integer for the case of percentage D, which means that the data should be an integer. And if we use the percentage sign C, which will mean the data type should be a char, we will see later.
Scanf to read the second variable.
Yes, but we define the variables, which is here integer 1, right? So far we just before this line we just know that the integer 1 should be an int type, but this is a read. If we read from the keyboard, we do not. I will input a number, or I will input something others, such as I can input a string or some messages. So we should tell that the input messages is an int type. These are two different things. At this line, we told that these variables has an int type, and in this case, which means that we read an int type. And this means that we put the read int type to this int typed variable integer 1. For example, we input something, but the computer do not know what's the type of your input by the user. So we need to tell the computer that the input is the type of the input. If you input a real number, then some compilers will get the error. So your program cannot execute it. And in some cases, it just keeps the integer part of this real number. No, in fact, the integer 1 is just a variable, and its type has been defined at the line 8. So here we tell this type is int, and we should put a int number into the variable integer 1. And we have also known that the integer 1 is an int type before. Integer 1 means a variable reference to a variable. The type of the variable has been defined before. Yes, of course, if it's not an integer, we will use the other data type to define this variable. For example, if we input the real number, we will define the variable, which is a real number, which type will be a real number type, such as a float and a double. We will introduce in the next section. In fact, this line is that the computer will assign this number to the variable integer 1. So the computer will read a number from the keyboard, and then it will assign and set the number to the variable's integer 1. Do you have any other questions about this example? The integer also tells the computer, because during its executations, we need to have the correct type of the variables. This line has also tell the compiler that the integer 1 is an int type. Those both are tails to the compilers. If we do not include these lines, then we can also remove these lines, but the user will not know what should I do, why the code just passes here. We should give the user some instructions. Seriously, we can not see that int is for definitions. Int and the percentage sign d, they are all refers to the int type. There are different rulers in the C. We cannot write int here. We should write for the scan4 function. We should write string format. Just remember, when we define a function, we use int or other keywords we will introduce later. And when we scan for variables, we need to use this conversation specifier and also use the sign before the variable. It will not output integers as a result. It's parameters of the function of scan4. It's a parameter of the function of the scan4. And the concept about the function we will introduce in the we will introduce the functions later. Yes, something like the percentage d, or it's a string and percentage d and percent d and something else, such as all the format control string. First, it is a string. Second, this string controls the format. Yes. It also can control something we output.
The integer 2 and the point4 statement displays the message into the second integer to the screen and then positions the cursor to the beginning of the next line. And this point4 also.
Yes, in this case, we will get error, which it will show that you assign different types the value in different types to a variable which has a different types as the inputted number.
Requires the use to take action. And also the scan4 gets value for the variable integer 2 from the user. The next assignment statement calculates the total of the variables integer 1 and integer 2 and assigns the result to variable sum using the assignment operator. And the assignment operator and the statement is read as the sum gets the value of integer 1 plus the integer 2, and most calculations are performed in assignment. And the assignment operator and the AND operator are called binary operators because each has two operands, and the AND operators two operands are the integer 1 and the integer 2, and the assignment operators two operands are the sum and the value of the expressions, the integer 1 plus the integer 2 and the integer 2. And remember that to place the space on either side of the binary operators, and this will make the operator stands out and make the program more readable. And in addition, calculation in an assessment statement must be on the right side of the assignment operators. It is a compilation error to place a calculation on the left side of an assignment operator.
So this line means that the value of the sum should be the total of these two variables. And we should put the sum at the left side and those two parts at the right side. In fact, the computer will first compute the total of these two variables, and then it will assign this total number to this variable's sum. Same as the scaffold, it will input variables and have these variables, and then assign the variables to the value of the integer.
Next statement is to call function printful to print the message sum is followed by the value of the variable sum on the screen. And this printful has two arguments, and those two arguments. And the first one is the format control string, which we have mentioned in the scaffold before. And it contains some characters to be displayed, and it contains the conversation specifier, the point sign D, indicating that an integer will be printed. And the second argument specifies the value to be printed, and notice that the conversation specifier for an integer is the same in both the printful and the scaffold. And we could also combine the previous two statements into one statement, and they are showing here. It will print the value of the sum of these two variables.
So in fact, we can compile those lines into one line. We can remove those two lines and then write the result. So this line, it did the two things first. It will compute the total of these two variables, and then it will print for the value.
Compile.
Yes, because this format control storing or this conversation special file percentage sign D told that this value the total of these two values will be placed here. So the value will replace the percentage sign D in the format of the output. For example, we can write more things. We can write more. We can put more characters in the strings, and we can see the results. The total number of these two variables are replace the positions of this conversation spatial file. So this string can control the output format. So it called the format control string.
The previous two statements into one statement, and they are showing here. It will print the value of the sum of these two variables. We have gone through the addition program. Next, we will introduce the memory concept in C program, and we also take the addition program as an example. And in the addition program, the variable names such as the integer 1 and the integer 2 and the sum actually correspond to locations in the computer's memory. And every variable has a name, a type, and a value. And in particular, in the addition program, when the statement scans for the first variable integer.
So every variables will have a name, a type, and a value. But in here, we only have the name of the variables, and we know the type of the variables, but we do not know the value of the variables. And in here, we will know the value of the variables because the inputted number will be assigned to the value of this variable. What's meaning to the question is that we will replace to the /n and our content line. If you can write any strings, any characters in this strings, and the percentage sign D, this conversation specifier will be replaced by the value of the second parameters, which follows this command. Which means that we can also output such as a number. You can also output an integer 1. And then the value of the integer 1 will be showing in this string. Replace the 13.5, it will be the 23. Do I answer your question? Okay, let's continue. Variables has a name, a type, and a variable and a value. And we define a variable. We just give it the name and the type, but we do not know its value. So in this cases, we get the value of the integer 1 here, and get the value of the integer 2 here, and get the value of the sum here.
Is executed, the value entered by the user is placed in a memory location to which the name integer 1 has been assigned. And suppose the user enters the number 45 as the value for the integer 1, then the computer will place the 45 into a location integer 1 as shown in this figure. And whatever a value is placed in a memory location, the value replaces the previous value in that location. And therefore, this process is said to be the destructive. And when the statement scanf for the second variable, integer 2, executes, suppose the use will enter the value 72, and this value is placed into a location of the integer 2, and the member appears as in this figure. And those two locations are not necessarily adjacent in your memory.
So if we do not give the value of these variables, what will happen? What result we could give? We can try it. We do not give it the value for the integer 1. So we just print for output its value. We can see what the result will be. Also, we see the value of the integer 2. We can see now the result for the integer 1 and the integer 2 is 0. However, we cannot always get the 0 for the integer 1 and the integer 2 if we do not give the value for these two variables. In fact, we will get randomly numbers for these two variables. So remember to give the value for the integers. Such as we want to for example, we want to output something addition 1, add 1. So if we put like this, we need first give the value for the integer 1. Integer 1, for example, we can do something like that, 10. This will also assign the 10 to the integer 1. to give the value for the integer 1. So if you want variables with a 0, you should also include this 9. The integer 1 will be assigned the 0. So remember that if you use variables, you need to define it and also give its value before use it.
Once the program has got the values for integer 1 and integer 2, it adds those two values and places the total into the variable sum. And this statement replaces whatever value was stored in sum. And this occurs when the calculated total of the integer 1 and integer 2 is placed into the location sum. And after sum is calculated, the memory appears as in this figure. And the value of the integer 1 and the integer 2 appear exactly as they did before they were used in the calculation. And they were used but not destroyed as the computer performed the calculation.
So after we execute this statement, then we will get the value of the sum and also store its value into the location of the memory of sum. And also the value for integer 1 and the integer 2 will also be kept in their memory, in their locations. Which means that we can use the integer 1 again because its value is its value and also kept in its locations. For example, we use the integer 1 and print the integer 1. And then I want to use the integer 1 again, such as we define a var double. And then we print for uniform. Yeah, we can see that the double integer also has the value of the 20, which means that the value of the integer is all kept in its location in its memories. So we can use the variables multiple times.
Most C programs perform calculations using the C arithmetic operators and the C operators of addition, subtraction, division have the similar expressions as the arithmetic operators. And there also have some differences between the C operation and the arithmetic operators. And for example, the asterisk indicates the multiplications and the percentage sign denotes the remainder operator, which is
Yes, the printful will not change the value because the value of the integer 1 is still 10. We just print the results of the integer 1 plus 1. If we do something like this, the integer 1 And then we input the integer 1. Then it will be the 22. Let's see it. Because if we do not use this assignment, then the value of the integer will not be changed. We just calculate the integer 1 plus 1, but the calculated value do not assign to the integer 1. Yes, the integer 1 plus 1 will be stored at a memory. Will be stored at a memory, and but you cannot access the memory. It will be stored in somewhere, but you do not have a reference to this locations of the memory.
Will be introduced later. And in algebra, to multiply multiply b times a, we simply place those singular variable names side by side, as in BM. But in C, however, if we were to do this, the BM would be interpreted as a single true-late name. Therefore, the C requires that the multiplication be explicitly denoted by using the asterisk operators, as in the B asterisk the M. And the arithmetic operators are all the binary operators. For example, the expressions 3, addition, and the 7 concerns the binary operators, the additions, and the operands, the 3 and the 7. Now we learn divisions and the
So the operators in C is very similar to the arithmetic. And how same as the mathematic, we cannot divide a 0. For example, if we want to define a variable I will repeat the last slides. We see this cases first. As we can see that there gives us a error, which means that we cannot division by 0. So if you have a integer, such as the integer 2, its value is 0, you cannot use the integer 1 to division this integer 2. Because the integer 2 is the integer 2 is 0. For the last slides, we talk about the arithmetic operators, and the C operators of the addition and the subtraction and the division has a very similar expressions as the expressions in the arithmetic operators. And there are some also there are some differences between the C operations and the arithmetic operator, such as the asterisk indicates, for example, the multiplication, The asterisk indicates that the multiplications and the percentage sign denotes the remainder operators, and those two divisions and the remainder will be introduced later. Yes. The C expressions means that the expressions in the C language. And we need to use this sign to represent the multiplications. We cannot just write another operand besides the first operand. So if you want to get the arithmetic results, you need to use its corresponding C expression. Yeah, we can try it. So the integer 2 is 1, so this will be the we need to print the we can see it's correct if we use a space. If we do things like that. It's also correct. So in fact, we can remove those spaces. However, a good practice is that we should include, or we suggest that you to include those spaces also for a readable.
And the intended division is an intended result. For example, the expressions, the intended division between the 7 and the 4 evaluates to 1, and the expressions of intended division between the 17 and the 5 evaluates to 3. And also, C provides the remainder operators percent sign, which gets the remainder after integer division, and it can be used only with the integer operands. And the expressions x% sign y gets the remainder after x is divided by y, and therefore the 7% sign 4 gets 3, and the 17% sign 5 gets 2. And note that divide by 0 is normally undefined on computer systems and generally results in a fault error that causes the program to terminate immediately without having successfully performed its job. C language applies the operators in array.
Also note that those two operators are only for the integer type. For the real time, we will not have those two operators.
Divide by 0 is normally undefined to terminate immediately without having successfully performed its job. C language applies the operators in arithmetic expressions in a sequence determined by the following rules of the operator precedence, which are generally the same as those in the algebra. And first, operators in expressions contains within pairs of the parentheses are evaluated first. The parentheses are said to be at the highest level of the precedence, and in cases of the latest or embedded the parentheses, the operators in the innermost pair of the parentheses are applied first. And second, the multiplication, division, and the remainder operations are applied next. If an expression contains several multiplications, divisions, and remainder operations, the evaluation process from the left to the right. And the multiplication, division, and the remainder are said to be on the same level of the precedence. And third, the addition and the subtraction operations are evaluated next. And if expression contains several additions and subtraction operations, the evaluation process from the left to the right also. And the addition and the subtraction also have the same level of the precedence, which is known than the precedence of the multiplication, divisions, and the remainder operations. And the assignment operator is the evaluated last. The rulers of operators precedence specify the orders it uses to evaluate the expressions. And when we say evaluation proceeds from the left to right, we are referring to the associativities of the operators. And we will see that some operators are associated from the right to left in the future lectures. And this table summarizes some rulers of the operator precedence for the operators we have seen so far. This is an example to show the order in which the operators are applied. And as we can see in this figure, the multiplication is the highest level in these say expressions. So we apply the multiplication operation first. From left to right, we calculate 2 multiplies 5 at the step 1, and then at step 2, the calculated 10 multiplies the 5. And at the step 3, the multiplication between the 7 and between the 3 and the 7 is achieved. And then the addition and the assignment operations are needed to be reached. So we apply the addition operation step by step. And finally, we assign the y with the value of the 17.2.
Okay, we taste this examples. And we can see the value of y is 17.2. And if we add some what the result will be. The order of the different operators. Yeah, we run it. So this order is also same as the arithmetic orders rulers. Okay, in this sections we have seen 2 examples of the C language and know some basic concepts such as the main function, the include, and the variables, and the space and the arithmetic operators. And we will introduce the data type in the next session, but we do not have enough time to introduce the data type. So we may remove the context into the next course. So so far for now, do you have any questions in this course or in the C programming language? Okay, if you do not have some questions, maybe we can see some cases, some examples for the arrows for the time. Okay, could you tell me what's error in this program? Yes, the .c means that this is a C language. This file is a C language programming. Yes, you are all right. We cannot we cannot include the /n because we do not need to go to the next line in this case because we just need to write a single line. And we see the result. And we use this. We can see that it will be an error, shows that there will be an undefined specifier. I will introduce the void in the section of the data type. Void means that the data void is a data type, which means that it has no value. In fact, the word is a data type, but the data type, I say it again, maybe the word type is specifies that the no value is available. And it only uses in 3 different situations. And we will talk about the 3 different situations at the section of the data type. Maybe we see the next example. Okay, what's error in this example? Yes, you are right. When we see this sign at the end of the statement, remember for each statement to include this sign. So if we remove this, and we will get an error. Maybe for the last case, what's error in this example? Yes, we're missing a quarter. So we use the double quarter to represent the string. If we're missing a quarter, it will also get an error. And those three arrows are the common arrows for the beginners. So remember, use this brace, and remember, use the double quotes, and also remember to include the sign at the each end of the statement. There are also other common errors.
Summarize some common errors in the C programming as a beginning, as a beginner, and some programs will make some errors in these situations. And first, they will ignore the parentheses after the main functions, and or incorrectly typing the open braces that significance the start or the end of the function body, or will write the wrong name of the functions, or forgot to close the messages to print for.
For example, someone maybe forgot the if, then will write the wrong name of the function.
A double quarter sign symbol, and also will have other situations. So if you write your own program, if you miss some errors, you can check the messages given by the compiler. And hello everyone.
Okay, do you have any other questions for the content or for this course? Okay, if you have other any questions, you can also email us. Yeah, the C language programming and the programming is really interesting, as you will see more interesting cases and the different operators to implement a complex project. Okay, maybe we end at here for this lecture. And for the reminder for the IDE and the environment setting will be introduced in the tutorial in next week. The exercise will be also will be given in the tutorial. And we also have some assignments. The first assignments will be given at the next week. Okay, maybe we stop here and see you next week. Bye bye.